All right, listen up. This ain't Broadway, but the U.S. Congress is putting on a show messier than a mob funeral on a rainy day. 10 days, Chijioke. 10 days of so-called leadership, and we're all supposed to clap? I'd sooner trust a rival at a sit-down than these jokers in D.C. Everyone posturing, none willing to pick up the check. You got healthcare stuck in the freezer, defense cash in limbo, and a sea of federal workers wondering if they got to pawn their wristwatch. Reminds me, if you want results, you don't send 12 capos to dinner. You send one, and he leaves with his answer.
Vinny, let me tell you, this thing reminds me of an old lesson from my army days. My sergeant would say, a hungry soldier fights best against an enemy, but worst against an empty pot. We keep seeing these furloughed workers, people with families, real lives, not just votes or pawns for headlines. The generals, or in this case, the politicians at the top, are fighting for position while the lower ranks feel the hunger. I keep thinking, are these shutdowns ever about solving anything, or are they a way to show muscle before the next big negotiation?
That's the question, right? Who really benefits here? Is it some new breed of political capo trying to carve out loyalty with layoffs and photo ops? You look at what Trump's doing, outright calling folks Democrat-oriented and putting their heads on the block. That's not even subtle. He's sending a message. Loyalty first, everyone else can take a walk. I mean, back in my old neighborhood, that's how you make an example. No one cares about the blowback until it's their name in the ledger.
You're not wrong. In Nigeria, they say, the goat that follows the crowd ends up at the butcher's. In this shutdown game, there's always a scapegoat for the public to blame. But at the end of the day, the real winners are the ones who can freeze the longest without catching frostbite. Meanwhile, our soldiers, our hospitals, everyday people, they're the ones in the cold.
And you gotta wonder, how much of this is pure theater? I remember last episode we broke down how language and narrative get weaponized, turning every problem into ammo for the next fight. This shutdown's no different. It's leverage, it's power, and the streets remember what the courts forget, believe me.
That's true. The people on the ground always remember who left them behind, Vinny. This story, it's just the opening act. All right, let's move from Congress to conflict. Different arena, same old games. Israel and Hamas call a ceasefire, and suddenly everyone's holding their breath, counting hostages and truckloads of aid instead of votes. And then, as if to top it off, America sends in 200 troops, like maybe they'll be the tiebreaker if things get dicey. I've led patrols on shaky ceasefires back in the Niger Delta, let me tell you. The calmest nights meant we all had our rifles pointed at the shadows. Sometimes, the silence is heavier than the shooting.
You know, Chijioke, Al Capone said, you can get much farther with a kind word and a gun than you can with a kind word alone. That's what a ceasefire really is. Not trust, a loaded promise with the safety off. The hostage swaps, the humanitarian deals, the troops monitoring, they're all pieces in a crooked Jenga tower. Each side is gaming the pause, eyeing who comes out with more chips when the shells start flying again. And you throw U.S. soldiers into that mix? Power respects power, but peace is just another layer of the hustle.
You know, sometimes a ceasefire is just a breath before the next fight. In those days, we learned to listen for what's not being said over the radio. It's not will this last, it's who's gaining the most ground while the clock ticks. Is Israel locking down positions? Is Hamas using the lull to reload? Even the aid convoys, are they lifelines or bargaining chips in another game entirely? Makes you wonder, will this ceasefire hold, or is everyone just fainting for their next move?
Every move is leverage. As we saw last episode, global power plays out in whispers and shadows. Out here, a ceasefire ain't peace. It's a market stall and everyone's selling illusions. And just like the shutdown, it's the civilians who pay up front, in hope and in blood.
I agree. For the people living it, there's never certainty. Only questions. When does the next siren sound? Or is this truly the moment where it all changes? For now, it's a dangerous game of waiting, with too many hands on the table.
And if you thought irony was dead, take a stroll over to the United Nations Human Rights Council, Chijioke, Egypt, Vietnam. Let's be honest, they're not exactly the first names you'd pick for a who's who of civil liberties. It's like hiring the fox to run the chicken coop and then being shocked when the eggs start disappearing. The only thing missing is North Korea chairing a TikTok committee on dance trends. Makes you wonder who's vetting these applications. Never outshine the capo, even at the UN.
Let me laugh, Vinny. If the drum beats for one man, the dance won't last. That is how it feels. An international joke played with serious faces. Now about the Supreme Court. Ghislaine Maxwell's conviction. No appeal. Just a big, approved stamp. That door is closed, but the air is heavy. Plenty on that guest list are sweating, wondering if their names are next. The higher the profile, the harder the fall. And if we learned anything from last episode's viral court drama, it's that justice loves the crowd, but rarely loves the spotlight for long.
Yeah, everybody's looking over their shoulder. Once you tug on the Epstein web, you don't know what's going to crawl out. Elephants, donkeys, billionaires. Accountability's a nice slogan, but people in high places always think they got a parachute till the cord snaps. You see the same thing with this Utah redistricting. New map, new power games. It's like reshuffling the table before the next card draw, and all it takes is one changed seat for everything to break sideways.
You're right. Rewriting battle lines from above looks simple. On the ground, it's mud and chaos. In the army, some colonel would hand us a new map, and I'd say, "Olga, have you seen these roads in the rain? Utah's got new blue cracks running through old red rock, and like a wise man once told me, sometimes the land changes the war more than the generals do." If this map sticks, Congress could see a surprise, just when everybody is distracted by shutdowns and legal soap operas.
It's always about who adapts faster. The power shifts, the narratives twist, and if you blink, you lose your seat at the table. Any final thoughts before we call it Chijioke?
Just this. You can't play the old game with a new map. From DC shutdowns to Gaza ceasefires to councils and courtrooms, it's all about who learns fastest and who's left listening when the music stops. Episode's done, but the show's not over, Vinny.
That's right. The circus changes costumes, but the clowns never retire. Thanks for sticking with us on the new Sentinel. Chijioke, always a pleasure. See you all next time, if the lights are still on.
Thank you, Vinny. And thank you to everyone listening. Stay sharp, and remember, a wise man watches where he sits. Good night, folks. Until next time.